Hello, this is Dr. Flight, and what we're going to do today is this is a illustration of factor analysis. And so I'm going to walk through a factor analysis process with a data set, and the data set here is the automobile interest study data set. So if we look at this data set that we have, what we're going to look for are groups of variables that we are thinking should go together. So what we're looking for are latent variables. In other words, we're looking for variables that could not be directly measured, but instead there's something that exists, but we can only measure through some other measurement means. So in other words, we look over here and I'm looking at these identity signaling questions. So if you looked at the actual questions in the survey, these questions go together and they should measure some sense of identity, like this brand portrays my identity, and it signals to others that of what my identity is based on the brands that I'm associating with. These questions here, social recognition, suggests that if I use a brand, others will notice me, others will recognize me, and things of that nature. We have self-esteem questions. We have something called emotional attachment, and there's actually several emotional attachment items here. So we can actually look at what those are. In the label area, I've indicated what those should actually be. Oops, let's clean this up a little bit here after going crazy with it. We don't need all this space for all these columns, but what I really want to do is look at here. So these emotional attachment. I feel emotionally attached to the brand. I have a sense of belonging to the brand. I feel loyal to the brand. I would expend effort. I trust, I have faith in, I have confidence in, I'd go the extra mile for. Those are all like levels of engagement or attachment, emotional attachment. So we have those questions. We have this single item, intention to buy. I intend to purchase the brand in the future. So that's a single item indicator. So it's not something we would load onto a factor, so we're not going to use that. Word of mouth, though, we'll use. Switching we'll use. Satisfaction we'll use. And then I have these questions here that are compulsive buying tendencies. Now, I've added these in just for a research purpose because it's something that I sometimes measure and do studies on. Not that it really relates to the impact that not that it would really relate to how impactful or meaningful it would be for somebody to buy the product or brand. But if somebody suffers from compulsive buying, these items would measure that latent variable. So what we want to do, again, our goals of factor analysis is to reduce data. So it's a data reduction method where we've got probably 25 or 30 variables here, and we have about 8 or 9 dimensions that these variables are measuring. So we're going to reduce our data set from probably around 30 variables down to 8 or 9 variables. That's one of the things that we want to do. We also want to be able to specifically measure these these latent concepts of like satisfaction and word of mouth tendencies and emotional attachment and stuff like that. You want to actually be able to measure those with a high degree of reliability and validity. And so a single item is likely not going to capture the entire dimension, for instance, of compulsive buying, but 3 or 4 or 5 or maybe even all 8 of these items will. So we're going to do factor analysis and on these items that I've identified. So we start now. One thing I do want to say is that when you do a factor analysis, you want to do all of the factors simultaneously. So whatever our final solution is, we need to be able to capture as many factors or latent variables as we can with as much rigor as possible simultaneously. So it's not like we don't choose like just word of mouth and then do a factor analysis, or just choose satisfaction and do a factor analysis. What we need to do is we need to choose all of these variables simultaneously and run the factor analysis together. So let's go ahead and begin this process. And it's going to do we're going to go back and forth a lot. We're going to test a lot of things all at once. And so what we do is we begin by going to dimension reduction, and then we go to factor, and then we want to bring over the variables that we feel are going to load on the factors that we want to measure. So we're going to capture all of these identities, signaling, the social recognition, the esteem questions, the emotional attachment questions. We do not need to have intention to purchase, intention to buy. So that's not something we need. We need word of mouth. We need satisfaction switching. And we do not need net promoter, because that's a single item. So net NPS scores is something that's separate, but we do want to capture this compulsive buying tendency. So again, I pulled over all of the variables that I think are going to measure what we want to measure. So the first thing to do as we're doing this factor analysis is we want to look for suitability of variables as it relates to the inter-item correlation. So there's two things that we're going to look at here. We're going to go into the descriptive category, and we want to look at an anti-image correlation matrix and the Kaiser and Bartlett's test of sphericity to test the MSA. Okay, so the measuring adequacy tests is what we're going to actually look at there. Now this is going to be a really big, we have a lot of variables. This is like a ton of variables. This is a big factor analysis we're doing. But this is basically what we want to do first. And as we do this, all we're looking for is the suitability of variables. We're going to come back and we're going to do this procedure again, and we're actually going to run the factor analysis. But now, for right now, we're just doing that. So I'm going to do OK, and this is going to bring up again our KMO, so Kaiser, Meyer, Olkin measure of sampling adequacy, which is the MSA. That's 0.903, so that's fantastic. The higher the better. Anything above 7-ish is going to be super good. And then the Bartlett's test of sphericity is significant, so that's acceptable too. So that's an indicator that the variables, that we have enough variables, in other words, to do this analysis. So now I'm going to come down to this anti-image matrix, and what we're going to do, this matrix will be actually split into two parts. The covariance matrix, anti-image covariance matrix, which is here up above, and then down below here, this anti-image correlation matrix. And this is what we want to look at. There's two things to basically look at here. The first, sorry, I'll pull that down again. The anti-image correlation matrix, the first would include the diagonal values. So 912, 885, 917, 927, 989, 923, 902, and so forth. So what we do is look at the diagonal values all the way through here. So 932, 902, 910, 890, 890, 930. And what we're looking at, similar to the KMO, we're looking for values that may be below a 7 or a 6. So 920, 98. And again, we're just going to kind of pull down here. I'm looking at these diagonals, so 934, 961, 9191. Oh, okay, so here's a 643. This one's a little bit lower than some of these others. This variable here may be one that we eventually eliminate. Oh, shoot. Because it's not that particularly large. So let me find it again, where it was. bear with me as I find this one here is one we want to look at. So I wonder, let's go across. I would switch to a competitor. So that's one of the switching questions if I experienced a problem. So that's maybe one of the switching questions. I don't know if we want to eliminate it now. It's not super low. 643 is not like too low. So, maybe it's just one to be aware of, and maybe it'll flesh out as we go. But all of these numbers look fairly adequate. They look all fairly strong. If it's something below a 0.5, then we know we're going to have difficulty with it, but we have all of these are looking pretty solid in general. So we have the 8, 9, 10, 8, 6, 5, 8, 7, 3, and so on. Okay, so those are the two things that we want to look at initially as we start this analysis. And again, let me reiterate, this is a lot of variables to test simultaneously. So don't be surprised or confused if this is messy for a little while till we get something that we're going to work with. Okay, so after we look at the variables for their initial suitability for correlation, we're going to actually start doing some data reduction. So we're going to go back to dimension reduction again, like we did before. Now we're going to go to factor, and we have all of our variables still in here. Only this time we're going to do a rotation and an extraction. So just to save space in the output, I'm going to take anti-image and KMO off because I've already done that. So I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm just going to take that off. Just so that you remember here, the extraction process, we're going to use principal components analysis. So PCA was what it would be. So principal components. Maximum likelihood may be another option, but principal components is what we're looking at here. I'm going to ask for a scree plot, which will be a chart of eigenvalues. And I'm going to use the Kaiser rule, which is based on eigenvalues. So when we look at the amount of variance that is explained in the entire data set here, certain factors will explain a certain amount of the variance, and so any factor that explains what's called an eigenvalue greater than 1 will be retained as a factor. So if there are 6, there are 6. If there's 3, there's 3. If there's 10, there's 10. Okay, and this might be something that we actually force later on. And if we do that, we do like I actually think there's going to be 8 or 9 factors because that's how many question types I've asked. But I don't know what's going to be retained. So initially, I'm just going to say the eigenvalue greater than 1. Later, we may have to force it to do more or fewer factors, and we'll worry about that when we get to it. When we do a rotation, I like to do a rotation that'll allow for correlation between factors. So I'm going to do a Promax, which is what I almost always do. Others, like the textbook, will use a Varimax rotation. I like to use a Promax rotation. We're going to do continue. One other little trick that I like to do, I like to sort my variables by size. I like to do that. I also like to retain as much information as possible. So what I usually do is replace my missing values with the mean, just so that I don't lose a lot of data by eliminating cases or whatnot. I like to be able to do that. So we're going to do continue, and let's just run this and just see what we get for an initial result. Okay, so the first box that comes up here, table, would be the commonalities. And the stronger the commonalities, the stronger the variables are in explaining or coming together and explaining information. We're not really going to worry about this right now. That's not something to really be concerned about because this information gets pooled into other tables that we'll look at. We will look at this table here, and specifically we'll look at our total initial eigenvalues. And this total number here indicates the eigenvalues. So this is like the amount of variance each factor explains. And you'll remember that anything over 1 will create a factor, because that was the rule we used. Eigenvalues over 1 would be the rule that we would use. So what this run of data will do, it'll produce 7 factors. So the 30 or so variables we're using, the computer thinks they should load onto 7 individual dimensions. And we need to analyze these to verify and confirm, or fix if we need to fix. This number 8 seems very close to 1, so we might even have an 8th or a 9th factor going on here. But right now the computer says we should have 7. The scree plot, what the scree plot does is when you see the break between the curve in the eigenvalues, that would suggest a break in the data. So actually this is where that break is happening. And so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the 7 variables. Somebody might even say that's where the break is, or that's where the break is. But so interpreting the scree plot is a little messy and it can be challenging, but it should correspond, of course, to the eigenvalue greater than 1 concept, and that's basically where the break is right here. So we're going to have to still do some work and verify it, see how this all pans out. All right, so with the Promax rotation, the box that you want to look at is actually going to be down here, and it's going to be the pattern matrix. That's what you want to look at. And again, this is a big table. So we have the first factor, which has these first variables in it. And actually, I think what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to copy this, and I think I'm going to put this into a Excel spreadsheet, just so that we're able to look at it a little bit better. Okay, so let's just do this so that it's a little easier for us to ultimately read and look at. I think we'll be able to see more here. So these items here all seem to go on the same factor. So these all more or less go on the same factor. These next groups, and let's look at this. These 2 variables seem very low. 597, 548, you know, those are out of character. So these all seem to go pretty well together. This seems a good bit lower, and then these seem a lot lower. So we may not retain these variables. So these are our compulsive buying variables, by the way. All of these are. Right, so compulsive buying tendencies. So these are those 8 variables that go together. However, it looks like these 3 may not be sufficiently strong to stay there. All right, so the next factor we're going to look at is this one here. And let's just give it another little color there just so that we can distinguish it. Compared to other brands, I'm satisfied. These are satisfaction questions. But look at this. This is like, these are recommendations. So these are like word of mouth questions. And it's odd that they would go with these others here. My guess is there may be some cross loadings. So there's some other factors maybe that these variables go with, maybe something like those. That's a little problematic. And incidentally, up here we had this one, which loaded on another factor, sort of. This one here. So what we're looking for is these values. We do not want cross loadings. We want single loadings on our variables. So we're actually going to, like, these here are going to be ones. These questions here are going to be ones that I'm a little concerned with at this point. These numbers are particularly low. Even though they're all fairly close together, they're all fairly low. And it seems odd that this question would go with these others. Okay, so that's going to be a little bit of a problem there. This next one, this is the next factor that we'll look at. We'll just kind of plop it in there, give it another color. These are the self-respect, be recognized. This is probably the social recognition questions. They help introduce me to others. Again, these are all, this one here is a little low, out of characteristic of these others that are here. So that's certainly one that I'd be concerned about. Next factor coming along here would be this. Again, we have this one, which is way out of range. So this is not, going to fit. This will actually fit on this factor over here better, much better. So this one's not going to be there. We're going to keep these guys on that, and I'm just going to throw in a different color just to illustrate. These would be probably we have a 10. Oh, we have these attachment. These are some of the emotional attachment questions. Remember, there were 8 of those, I think, and there's 4 of those that are there now. And then we have this one here, which again, this is kind of a big conglomerate of, I have faith in. So these are some of the emotional attachment ones, but then also we have a word of mouth one going on here and so on. Okay, so we've got those going there, and then we have this last, sort of these last 2 columns. We have this one and this one. These 2 are fairly clear because those are our switching questions. So this factor is actually pretty solid. We have 2 items, and they both go together, and there are switching items. This one right here is a little problematic because we have this 515 going on there. So maybe it fits, maybe it doesn't fit. It's kind of hard to say. Okay, so what I would do here, we've got a lot of variables, a lot of things going on here. This compulsive buying thing going on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out these bottom 2. And the reason why is because we have plenty of items that measure compulsive buying. You need at least 3, or you want at least 3 desirably. And we have more than 3, but these 2 clearly underperform. So we're going to take these out, and then we're just going to see what happens beyond that. So every time you take something out, you want to rerun the factor analysis and then see how everything pans out. This switching stuff looks good. Some of these others look okay. Maybe we can drop a few of these, like this pride one. But we need to take the weakest ones out first. And this might be there might be one at the very end here. That's the weakest. It's not in this case, but sometimes the weaker ones are towards the end. But I'm going to take out these 2 questions here because they really don't fall into a good place. And then we're going to rerun it. Okay, so that means we're going to go to Analyze. We're going to go to Dimensions, Factor Analysis. And this one is, at times I have felt somewhat, so these are going to be down here. At times I felt somewhat guilty. So I'm going to take that out. And then the other one is, there are things that I buy that I do not, wait. There are some things that I buy, it's this one here. Some things that I buy that I do not show anyone. Okay, so we're going to take that out. So we took 2 of the compulsive buying items out. We're going to keep all of the things the same. I will show you one other real nice little trick here. If you suppress the small coefficients, then what that means is like anything that scores low will be a blank. And so basically what I'm concerned about are, the lowest thing I'd be concerned about is probably a 0.3 or 0.4. So I'm going to put a 0.3 in here, hit continue, and then you're going to see where the benefit of doing that is here in a sec. I'm going to do OK. I got my communalities. Now I'm going to have two less questions. So there was actually 37 items, and now there's only 35. I still have 7 factors that are being used here or returned. And I'm going to come down, and now you'll notice a lot more empty spaces. And the empty spaces here, so this is the same pattern matrix that we saw before table, but I took out any numbers that were below 0.3. See, so now it cleans this up. It makes things a lot easier for us to read. So that's good. So that's actually one of the things we want. Now I encourage friends to consider purchasing this brand of, and I would recommend for you. So one of our problems here is these 2 questions don't go with compulsive buying. Oh wait, these are, okay, wait a minute, these are satisfaction now. So these are our satisfaction ones, okay. But these are still word of mouth. See, this is still, these 2 are word of mouth questions, and these are satisfaction questions. So let's just remember that we have 2 factors, 2 things being measured in one factor. Let's just remember that as we go down through here. All right, so we have introduced to others, we have self-respect going on here. So this one here is particularly low. So this brand enhances my self-respect. It's fairly low. That's like a self-esteem question. So that self-esteem question actually should go somewhere else. That shouldn't go with these here, because these others are social recognition questions. All right, then we've got this one. Sometimes I feel that, oh, these are compulsive buying ones. 1, 2, 3. We have about 6, and those all look pretty solid. Those numbers are good. 877 down to 738. Good. Those look fine to me. So what doesn't look fine is this self-respect question. So it should go somewhere else. So actually, look at this. It should probably go down here. And we've got these going on. And then we've got, I'm willing to go the extra mile to be a customer. We got our switching questions. This brand makes me stand out in a crowd. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. There's 2 or 3 questions here that I think need to go out, but at the same time, we've got at least an extra factor being measured, an extra dimension being measured within a factor. This factor 2 is actually capturing 2 dimensions. So here's the problem. I think we need 8 dimensions. I don't think we need 7. Because we need to force this to split if we can. And then we have some variables that we need to get out. All right, so I'm willing to go the extra mile. Looks like it needs to go out. And I'll tell you what we're going to do here. We're going to copy this, and we're going to put it back into, we're going to look at it again in here, because it's just easier for me to show you how we're going to do this. All right, so we're going to, now I know I'm going through this fast because I've done this a bunch of times. So this question here is to me a little problematic because it's really low compared to the rest. This question right here to me is problematic. Again, because it really is low. These others may be low too. In fact, it might be, you know what, I tell you what, I'm not going to worry about that one right now. Because maybe this one here should be another factor that we're not looking at. So maybe I'm going to hold off on that, because this one here may actually be measuring 2 dimensions at the same time, just like 2 was doing. So I would expend extra effort. This one here is pretty low. This one here is for sure This one for here is for sure low. Okay, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take out this one question, and I'm going to split this. I'm going to force more factors than we already have. I'm going to force a 9-factor solution instead of a 7-factor solution, and see how that plays out. So we're going to go back to factor analysis. The question we're going to remove is, this brand makes me stand out from the crowd because it doesn't really fit. This is number 1. I'm going to take that out. And when I do the extraction, instead of 7 factors, I'm going to force it to give me 9. So this should spread the data out a little bit, and let's just see what happens. Okay, so again, what we're doing is we're doing something greater than the eigenvalue rule, and it may be we have to do something else, but we're just going to try this for now. Oh yeah, okay, that's one too many. That's one too many factors. See, these guys shouldn't be over here. So what we're doing is we've got one too many factors now. It should only be 8 probably. Yeah, and this is the compulsive buying tendency. So that scale should work well, but we got this extra problem over here. So this extra deal, these are, well, you know, nope. Okay, so let's go back. Let's do one less factor. So we'll do 8 instead of 9. Boom. And now let's look at it and see what's going on here. And this is the pattern. Ugliness. Oh no, that's not good. We've got even more challenging stuff going on here now. No, that's not good. That's not good. We got too much going on here. Too many cross loadings going on here. So if we go back up, let me just go back up. And let's look at this one more time. Let's see, because this one looks good. Brands, that's a good factor. This is a fairly good factor there. This factor is not very good. This is really a clumsy factor with a lot of things in it that aren't very good. We got something going on in here, and you know, 0.3, low 0.3 is not the end of the world, but it's still not great. And then we've got senses of pride. We've got that going. Self-respect. All right, let's take this self-respect item out. The brand enhances my sense of self-respect because that's clearly too low. And let's take this in general, I'm satisfied. Okay, and we'll work our way up. We'll go down and then up. Okay, so brand enhances my sense of self-respect. Brand enhances our self-respect, and generally I'm satisfied. All right, so we're going to do dimension. This brand enhances my sense of self-respect. In general, I'm satisfied with. We're going to make sure we went back to a 9. So we were looking at our 9 there. So let's see what happens. Okay, yeah, that's still a little low. All right, now we've got just an ugliness there. Let's shoot it back to an 8. Let's do it back to an 8. Let's go back to extraction, an 8-item scale. And we'll go to our pattern matrix. All right. Okay, we're getting there. We're getting there. This is looking better. This is actually starting to look, these 3 items that are in the middle here, these satisfaction items, boy, those are problematic. Those are a little problem. This one here, I'm satisfied with the price quality. That definitely is a challenge. See, and these others, actually, to be honest, these 3 are word of mouth questions, and these 2 are satisfaction questions. we may end up losing some of our satisfaction ones here, because this I'm satisfied with the price quality ratio needs to go. And honestly, this one here, these three may have to go. But let's do I'm satisfied with the price quality ratio. Let's take that one out. Do one at a time here. Set right here. Let's take that satisfaction 3 out. Okay, so switching is good. Quality, we have a couple quality questions, so that's satisfaction with quality. We've got this identity, these identity questions, so those are good. And then we have these self-confidence and faith ones, pride. Those are those emotional attachment questions that are all sort of there. Okay, so let's take out this compared to other vehicles, because that's and I say positive things. All right, so you get the idea of this whole process. It's sort of a working type of a thing that we have to do compared to other, where we work back and forth until we have what is statistically solid. I think that should work, actually. I'm just going to do OK and run it again. Yeah, that's still a little, I say positive things, that's still not working for us, is it? That guy right there is just not working for us. And then we have this brand elevates our pride and our confidence. Okay. This brand, my bride and my confidence. Boy, we lost all those self-esteem questions. All right, I say positive things. All right, now if I did this again, I'd probably run this analysis a few more times. I'm willing to go the extra mile needs to go. See, like, look at this. See, like this, it's a 479, so that needs to go. Oops, wrong one. Sorry. All right. What was that? I'm willing to go the extra mile. That's the question right there. All right. Very good. All right. Now we've got a pattern matrix that looks fairly suitable. This guy here looks a little low, but that's okay. All right. So we've got 8 dimensions, and they're measured by a series of questions. Again, if I would, I'm doing this, this is the first time I'm doing this for this data set. So I would probably do this a few more times. Sometimes what I do is I break up a data set and I'll do a few dimensions at once. At the end, though, at the very end, you have to run all your items together with all your dimensions together. So for instance, if I'm running into a lot of trouble, sometimes I'll take 2 or 3 dimensions or 4 dimensions together, factor analyze them, and then I'll do the other dimensions, the other 3 or 4 dimensions together, factor analyze those, and then put all of my items together that I have in my reduced set to run all of the factors at once. So sometimes I'll do that. The last thing that you want to do is whenever you have your factors solutions made, you want to look at the reliability among those questions. So there's a couple ways to do this. The one thing you absolutely want to do, though, is find the Cronbach's alpha. So we're going to go to reliability analysis. And so for this first factor, these are our compulsive buying ones. So I sometimes feel something pushes me. So what we did, we go to reliability analysis. We're going to ask for that one. I often feel a real desire to buy. Shopping is a way of relaxing. There are times when I have a strong urge to buy. I often buy something I see in the store, and then when I have money, okay, so that's that. So these are the items in factor 1. I've put them in here, and what I want to do is calculate the Cronbach's alpha, and it needs to be something above 0.7. Okay, so this is actually 0.910, so that's fantastic. That's exactly what you want to do, what you want in terms of a result. So 0.910, that is good. If we do any of these, like I'll look at this one here, like the switching one. No, this one here, the brand showcases my identity, my personality, and my desire. Those numbers, those factor loadings aren't like super tight with each other. So if there was going to be a reliability that was lower, it may be that particular factor. So let's just look at that factor again. So we have the brand showcases my identity. That one. It portrays my personality, and it displays my social status. Those 3 items. Those 3 items are supposed to make up a factor, and its Cronbach's alpha is 0.789. So it's above 0.7, so we're good. We're happy with the way that looks. Now another thing that we can do is calculate the composite reliability and the average variance extracted. So to do that, you actually, I have another tool that you can use in Excel that's available, and so I'll pull that up. It's just an Excel file that will be used here. If I can locate it, bivariate, here we, oops, nope, that's not it, sorry. Well, hold on. Okay, I'm back here, sorry. This is the tool here. It's actually the AVE-CR calculation spreadsheet. So average variance extracted and composite reliability are the 2 things. And what we're going to do is we load in the factors, the factor scores. So I'm going to scroll up here to our pattern matrix. And then if you look here on the spreadsheet, there's a couple different options. We have a 3-item factor. So we have this this factor that we just looked at below here, where it was the showcases my identity, my personality, and displays my social status that is desirable. So what we're going to do is we're going to put these loadings in. So we have a 0.889, then we have a 0.780, and then we have a 0.696. So these loadings here actually go in under lambda, and then down below here calculates the average variance extracted, which needs to be above a 0.5, and the CR composite reliability, which again needs to be above 0.7. So we have met the criteria for reliability for that factor. So confirm the reliability of each factor, and then you can go ahead and create a composite variable for this factor. Okay, so the composite variables, what we'll do is we'll take a mean or an average, or we'll let the software create a variable for us if you should choose to do that. So that's it. That's what we do. So that composite variable will do just one for example here. If this was the factor social identity, we could do social ID composite. And so this would be the composite variable for social identity. We're going to take the mean of this brand portrays my personality, this brand showcases my identity, so that one. And then this brand portrays my personality, so that one. And then this brand displays the social status I desire, that one. Alrighty, so if we're going to do a mean composite score, we just create the mean, and then we have our new variable, which you can see down at the very bottom here, a social composite score. And if we go into data view, we can see that there's a new variable here that is a composite for that factor. And there we go. There we got it. Okay, and you can look at this. So you can go. We can look at just the descriptives of this specific factor now, or of this specific variable now that it is truly a scaled variable. We can look and see, you know, the different parts of it. We can actually go into descriptive explore. Explore would be a better one, right? To look at. So we're going to go into there. We'll look at the statistics, maybe the outliers if you wanted to do that. Yeah, continue. Options. No, we're not going to worry about that too much. Go into OK. There's the box plot. There's the statistics for the kurtosis and the skewness. It wouldn't be a bad idea to look at the histogram just to help us out there a little bit. We'll do OK. We'll look at the histogram. And it's not completely normally distributed, but it's not that bad either. It's not the end of the world. Okay, so this is a factor analysis. There's a lot of work involved in a factor analysis. There's a lot of steps. It takes a lot of time to do one. This was actually very quick. So this took about 45 minutes, and it may take you twice as long if you're really focused on trying a lot of different possibilities. Okay, so anyways, have fun with factor analysis.